Good morning, everyone. We have a quorum. I call to order the meeting of the panel on development. Agenda item 1, information papers issued since the last meeting. Since the last meeting, the Secretariat has not issued any information papers. Agenda item 2, items for discussion at the next meeting. Please refer to LC paper number CB bracket 11423/2025. Bracket 01 and paper number bracket 02. They are the list of outstanding items for discussion and the list of follow-up actions. The next regular meeting will be held at 8:30 a.m. on the 13th of October. The administration suggests that we discuss the following two items. 1. Innovative measures to speed up urban renewal, and URA 2024-25 work report. And 2. Peer improvement program. Do members agree? No objections? All right. On the 13th of October, we will discuss these two topics. Agenda item 3, that's the major item today. Briefing by the Secretary for Development on the Chief Executive's 2025 policy address. The relevant papers are set out on the agenda. A number of government officials are seated here. Welcome, Secretary, and your team. Quite a number of members have already pressed the request to speak button. Let me read out the lineup. Mr. Andrew Lam, Deputy Chair, followed by Mr. Benson Look, Mr. Perry Yu, Dr. Wendy Hong, Mr. Gary Zhang, Mr. Chang Kok Fung, Mr. Edward Lau, Ms. Chen Yut Ming, Ms. Doreen Kong, Mrs. Regina Ip, Mr. Bill Tang, Mr. Ma Fung Kwok, Mr. Frankie Yik, and myself. We have 14 members who have asked to speak. Now, I'll first invite the government representatives to walk us through the paper. Secretary, you'll give an opening remark, right? There is a PowerPoint presentation. I believe members are quite familiar with the key initiatives under the purview of the Development Bureau, so please be brief in your presentation. That would give us more time for discussion and questions. Secretary, please. Thank you, Chairman. I believe members are aware of the key initiatives related to the Development Bureau in the policy address, so I'm not going to go through every slide of the PowerPoint presentation. I'll walk you through the presentation quickly. On land creation, for the coming 10 years, we will update this forecast annually. In the latest forecast, we believe that in the coming 10 years, we will have 2,600 hectares of spade-ready sites ready, of which 1,800 hectares will come from the northern metropolis. If you look at the past few years, we have been publishing this forecast every year. Have we been able to meet our targets over the past few years? The answer is yes. Well, we haven't completed the 2026-27 land creation program yet, but according to our estimate, we are supposed to develop 150 hectares of spade-ready sites by 2026-27. We believe we'll meet this target. In the coming 10 years, 70% of the spade-ready sites will come from the northern metropolis. This shows that we will enter into a major development phase for the Northern Metropolis project. So at this stage, we will have to focus on attracting enterprises to take part in the development project and attract industries to set up operations. There are 3 initiatives proposed by the Chief Executive. First, we have to strengthen the governance structure of the Northern Metropolis project. The CE will chair the Northern Metropolis Development Committee. There are 3 working groups under the committee. As mentioned, we are entering into the development phase, and these are the works that we will focus on. Also, we will have dedicated legislations for the Northern Metropolis project to empower the government to adopt streamlined statutory procedures that include setting up industrial park companies and have dedicated channels for funding. We also have to ensure the flow of people, capital, as well as data. Early next year, we will conduct consultation, and by the middle of next year, we will introduce the legislation to the LegCo, and by the end of next year, we'll be able to complete the legislative exercise, hopefully. This is a rather aggressive timetable. Also, we have to ease restrictions and remove barriers to streamline administrative procedures and promote public-private partnerships. We will strive to streamline land creation, land administrative procedures. We will adopt a flexible land grant arrangement and as well as tenancy agreement. We encourage enterprises to take part in the development project. Apart from speeding up the development of the Northern Metropolis, we will also promote other large-scale land creation programs. That includes the replanning of Tuen Mun West as well as Long Ku Tan reclamation works and the works at Tseung Kwan O 137 and 132 and the new Tung Chung Town Center project. In the coming 10 years, we will have 270 hectares of spade-ready sites from these projects, and that has been included in the 10-year forecast that I've just mentioned. Another major direction that we're going to take is to promote the development of industries. Outside of the Northern Metropolis, we are putting forward the city in hostels scheme. And we're going to expand this scheme, as this scheme has been very popular. We're also going to continue to promote the development of yacht berthing facilities, and that includes the project at Exlama Quarry. And next year, we're going to launch the tendering exercise. Also, we're going to take forward the Aberdeen Typhoon Shelter project and the Hong Kong Station Harbourfront project for the yacht berthing facilities. We're also going to enrich rural ecotourism. We believe that by early next year, we will report to this panel on our studies on urban-rural integration. We will coordinate relevant departments to use Lan Kwai Fong as a pilot point. Apart from developing new development areas, there are some landmark old districts in urban areas. We will use Lan Kwai Fong as a pilot point to enhance the urban elements. And that's part of our urban renewal efforts. In the policy address, we have put forward 3 major initiatives. First, we will allow URA to use the new development areas to support their urban renewal projects. Second, we're going to relax certain arrangements that apply to the entire market. That is, the plot ratio transfer arrangement will allow plot ratio to be transferred to other districts for unutilized plot ratio. Third, we're going to introduce additional plot ratio for districts with a pressing need for urban renewal. We may even transfer the plot ratio into monetary value to offset premium payable for the projects. The URA has already announced that on the 13th of October, at the meeting of this panel, it will give its work report and it will further explain the details of these 3 measures. Apart from residential sites, we are going to focus on studies on industrial lands. We will explore the way forward for the revitalization scheme for industrial buildings. We hope to put forward recommendations by next year. We want to, on one hand, ease restrictions and remove barriers, and at the same time, we want to promote the participation of the private sector. This is because we have to combine the efforts of the government as well as that of the market. That would make things a lot easier. Over the past 2 years, works projects have slowed down because of the condition of the real estate market. So the series of measures we are putting forward are partly to invigorate the amount of projects in the private sector. At the same time, we will also strive to reduce construction costs. We will fast-track the approval process for large-scale projects. We will relax the GFA exemption arrangement for car parks in private developments. We will review the construction material standards, and we will conduct central procurement and strengthen the use of AI. In the next 5 years, the average construction cost will increase from $90 billion per year into $120 billion per year. We are stepping up efforts, and in the next 2 to 3 years, we will earmark an additional $30 billion. We will pay special attention to small-scale works to support small and medium-sized enterprises. That's all for my briefing. We are happy to take questions from members. Thank you, Secretary. The first member to speak is Deputy Chairman, Mr. Andrew Lam. I'll give each member 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. There are so many parts in this year's policy address that have to do with the Development Bureau. I can't cover all of them. I'll just mention 2 points. They are a surprise to me, and at the same time, I think that they are some kind of breakthroughs. In the past, we focused on, for example, land development or land creation. We also focused on regulation matters. This year, however, we're focusing on easing restrictions and removing barriers, as well as supporting the development of industries. I think there is one thing that is very important to promoting standards for construction design and materials. I want to thank the Development Bureau for promoting the use of MIC, Modular Integrated Construction. It helps speed up the development of housing. The Development Bureau has put in a lot of resources. We have to be fair to the Bureau. At the Public Works Subcommittee, I always say that MIC is expensive. I'm not sure if it is applicable to all kinds of projects. We have to save up resources, however. We have to know when it is suitable to use this method. A couple of days ago, there was an announcement about enterprises working with the Middle East to help those enterprises go global. I have an aspiration. I hope that the Building Technology and Research Institute can come up with a set of standards for construction materials and methods. Secondly, I'd like to turn to easing restrictions and removing barriers. How can we make use of the pre-existing industrial buildings? This is not unique to Hong Kong. A lot of industrial buildings or commercial buildings in other places, because of economic restructuring, they have to be transformed to something else. How can we attract enterprises and industries to set up presence in the northern metropolis as soon as possible? By easing restrictions, we'll be able to yield results soon, so I hope to have the relevant details announced or disclosed soon. On urban renewal, I have some great ideas, but I cannot cover all of them here. Well, we're going to discuss this in particular in the next meeting, so I'm not going to go into the details here. I think we shouldn't just work on saving money. I think we need a set of policies to help promote the development of industries in the entire Greater Bay Area.
Chairman, as Mr. Lam said, in terms of the construction standard and technology review, we should not merely look at our own projects. We would very much like to make Hong Kong's construction industry become well standard. And we'd like to introduce the superb technology from the mainland. Now, in terms of MIC, we can see the strength that we can leverage. Manufacturing is never our strength. We don't have enough land. We cannot compare with the mainland. Now, our strength lies with the certification and accreditation. There are indeed enterprises in Hong Kong that have entered into agreements with Middle East countries to introduce the technology there. We should be aware of the strength, where our strength lies. As to the review of the industrial buildings, we should be able to complete that next year, and recommendations will be made thereafter. Mr. Benson Look, Chairman, in this administration, the Development Bureau is really taking on an important role. The Northern Metropolis, the yacht economy, the hostels in the city, there are so many policies rolled out. I am particularly concerned about the yacht economy. There are 3 areas there. In the paper, there is a mention of expanding the Aberdeen Typhoon Shelter. This has been discussed for quite some considerable time. There are 200 berthing facilities, and also for a lot of water body. We need the breakwater. During T10 in the southern district, there is a hotel that was on the receiving end of the fury of the ferocious waves, and the breakwater was damaged. In the Aberdeen Typhoon Shelter expansion, the slanting breakwater would be ditched. Instead, they will be using the vertical breakwater. In these extreme weather conditions, will the breakwater to be built be any higher to protect the cove area so that the yacht economy can be safeguarded? Now, that's point number one. Second, Chairman, I noticed that in Hong Ham and also the former or ex-Lama Quarry, the government is collecting public views as to how they should take forward the berthing facilities and operational details. Now, previously, they had the membership arrangement. I think in future, we should allow the members of the public to use the facilities as a means to promote yachting activities. I'm wondering whether anything that will be done to the lease conditions. And also in Hong Ham, I noticed that in the policy address, there is mentioned in 2026 Q1, the Hong Ham Railway Yard Pier Activity Center will be open. Would there be any further details that you can fill us in on? Secretary, please. 3 questions there. The first one is an Aberdeen Typhoon Shelter. Indeed, we are making preparation for the expansion work. By next year, we should be coming to the Finance Committee of the Council for funding. Now, the design of the breakwater, we are actually adopting the latest weather or climate data for the design. I said earlier that with the breakwater, the water body there would be a lot calmer. Now, I noticed that the hotel was affected by the waves, and with the new facilities, I'm sure that would help guard against anything untoward from happening in future. Now, with this breakwater, other than expanding the typhoon shelter, we're going to be having a calmer water body where we can put the yacht berthing facilities there. We're going to be having a marina, and recreational activities can take place there. Next year, subject to funding being dispersed, we will build the breakwater. And for Aberdeen, the typhoon, the berthing facilities tender will go out in 2027. Lemma and Hong Ham, also the berthing facilities. We are collecting the expression of interest that the Lama project will go ahead faster. We will be going out to tender next year. What you said a moment ago regarding the marina being open for public use, we will proactively consider that. Finally, about the Hong Ham Railway Yard Pier, we said that in Q1 next year, we hope that we can accelerate the opening of the Finger Pier. We are carrying out some simple work to make it beautiful, to make it nice, and then an operator will come in on short-term tenancy to make the best of that particular area for activities to be held there. Mr. Perry, Chairman, thank you. I'm grateful to the Secretary and her team for supporting the tourism industry. And there is more of the same in the policy address. There will be tourism developed in rural areas, and in Lan Kwai Fong there will be beautification to enhance the urban fabric there, and that would go a long way to developing the in-depth tours. And also in Repulse Bay, there is the idea of putting a pier there. I go along with that. We do have a lot of resources. Land access is rather limited, and marine access is a good idea. And also at Aberdeen typhoon shelter, we can see the fury of the massive waves there this time, and I'm sure that with the facilities there, it would certainly put things right. If you understand the geography there, if you put the breakwater there, you will make things better. I've got some questions to follow up on, though. First, the pier improvement program will be discussed at the next meeting, but I can't really wait. I can see that in Ma Liu Shui, the new pier will be coming on stream on the 9th. And I've seen the Longxun one. I visited there, and the pier is about to be ready. We understand that this is the pier which is closest to the East Dam. Now, we are very concerned about the traffic situation at the East Dam, in particular during the holiday period. I'm wondering whether you will be liaising with the trade to provide for marine access to the East Dam. And I'm wondering whether the Bureau will have any consideration of this nature. Northern Metropolis. The policy address is seeking to accelerate the development of the Northern Metropolis. There are going to be 3 working groups. The working group on operation model, the working group on Uni Town, the working group on planning and development. Now, for these 3 working groups, which one of them will be responsible for the blue-green eco travel ecotourism circle, which is not mentioned much in the policy address? And I hope that we can take this forward simultaneously. Secretary, Chairman, on the first question about the ferry or the pier improvement program, we'll discuss this next time. Now, when a pier is up and running, how can we take full advantage of this and arrange for some tours and so on? Now, we will leave this to the Tourism Commission. The Bureau and the Tourism Commission are working hand in glove. We will let them know about the availability of the piers, and they can make the preparation there. Now, regarding the blue-green eco-tourism in the Northern Metropolis, now this may have to do with the hardware. We do need to have the facilities, the infrastructure, and so on. Now, all these will come under the DFS's working group on planning and development. Now, if you talk about the blue-green facilities, the operation of them? Will there be any new model for operation? We probably would need to go to the FS because that's the working group on devising development and operation models. Now, that's the right forum for discussion, but we will certainly be working collaboratively. Nothing will fall through the gap. Everything will be picked up under this particular network. All right, no follow-up. Next, Dr. Wendy Hong, please. Chairman. Secretary, from the policy address, I can see that the governance of the Northern Metropolis will be under 3 working groups. That we have the CDNM, which is overseeing 3 working groups, the working group on operational model and the working group on Unitown and working group on planning and development. Are we going to have a timetable and a roadmap for the development of the Northern Metropolis for us to go by? Second, what about the Office of the Northern Metropolis? Will they be reporting to these 3 working groups? And also the park companies, how do you define them? Are you defining them by categories like logistics company and tech companies and so on? Second, there will be dedicated legislation to be enacted. Now, I'm thinking of a plug-and-play model. The legislation is like a socket, and we can streamline all the procedures. And we have all these plug to plug into the socket. Now, this chief executive said on radio that there will be a framework legislation, and there will be subsidiary legislation to with which to set up these park companies. Can you share with us how this will be taken forward? And my third question is about the short-term tenancy. Now you have a 7+7+7 or 3+3+3 model. Now for these short-term tenancy arrangement, will this be applicable to North Metropolis, or will this be applied across the board in Hong Kong? Secretary. Yes, about the Northern Metropolis, will there be any roadmap and timeline? As we said, over the next 10 years, there will be 1,800 hectares of spade-ready land in the Northern Metropolis. And with the spade-ready land, how soon will we get into the building stage? We do have the plan. Say, for instance, the Unitown, the Hong Shui Kiu, the first batch of land will be coming on stream in 2026. Out Town Bay, the Unitown, the first batch of land will become available in 2028. I think we can work back from this timetable. At the Northern Metropolis office, we do have the website, and all this information can be collated for the benefit of the council as well as the members of the public, so that they understand all these milestones. Now, in the coming 10 years, we have 1,800 hectares of spade-ready land. And in fact, in the coming 5 years, we do have the availability of the spade-ready land. We do have the target there. The availability of economic floor space, the building stock. We have the 5-year milestone and the 10-year milestone. We can collate the information there. As to the Northern Metropolis office, indeed, in the development of Northern Metropolis, it will be responsible to the CDNM, chaired by the CE, and we have the working group headed up by the FS, and the office will be the secretariat for that working group, and the office will also play an important role in its liaison work. As to statutory and non-statutory, we don't have any preconceived ideas for the time being. It all depends on different sectors and different zones. In the Northern Metropolis, we do have different tracts of land for different sectors. we can group together the different clusters and put them under one single park company. We may not need too many park companies, or we may not be down to just one single one. As to short-term tenancy, it will be applied across the board in Hong Kong. We hope that as long as the piece of land will not be used by the government in 2 years' time, and I mean, if this is the case, we will have these really short-term use, like car parking, for instance. If there are pieces of land that will have long-term use, but the trade would like to have short-term leases, like 7 years for each cycle. We'd like to have this new form of short-term tenancy for Hong Kong. As to the dedicated legislation, all I can say today will not go beyond too much from what we stated in the paper, because we're doing the preparatory work. We hope that next year we will come up with the recommendations, but that shouldn't be a terribly complicated piece of legislation, because otherwise it would take an awful long time for these to come about. We hope that we will have a framework, and as we go along, we can add flesh to the bone. As we go ahead with the development, we can have subsidiary legislation, but at the end of the day, LegCo will play the gatekeeping role there.
Next, Mr. Gary Zhang. Thank you, Chairman. In this year's policy address, a number of initiatives are related to the Northern Metropolis development. There are also new policy initiatives. I support all of them, and I'd like to see results. I have a comment and a suggestion. I'd like the government to consider this. In developing the Northern Metropolis, this is not just for the future of Hong Kong. It has to do with people's livelihood issues. If we want to make sure the Northern Metropolis project is successful, well, we want to share the fruits with our people. So I think there should be continuous dedication of resources into minor and the local works. We shouldn't just focus on the Northern Metropolis and disregard the, for example, bridge improvement works or other minor works in local districts. This is because all these projects have to do with people's lives. For example, 2 years ago, there was a consultation on the bridge to be built in near Fanling Station, but the project has been suspended. And also there was traffic congestion at the roundabout in the district there, and there were talks about getting funding approval from LegCo, but again, we don't see a timetable yet. So I think this has to do with people's confidence in the government and their support for the government. As mentioned by the Secretary, $30 billion of extra funding will be earmarked by the government. I hope that the money will be devoted into these livelihood projects. Now turning to the dedicated legislations for the Northern Metropolis project. Well, to offer my suggestions, how can we make sure that the government can take the lead in the Northern Metropolis project on town planning in Hong Shui Kiu, Ha Tsuen, Ao Tau Mei, as well as the Sentian Technopole? We have different outline zoning plans for these areas in the Northern Metropolis. Can we have one master plan for all these areas? Once we have the master plan set, then we can flexibly plan these areas. I hope that in the long run, we can have this master plan. Lastly, on the GFA exemption arrangement for private car parks, well, currently if you move the car parks from above ground to underground, you get the GFA exemption. But what will the building height restrictions be? So I want to know what the relevant considerations are behind the exemption arrangement. Secretary. Yes, while we take forward the Northern Metropolis project, we should not forget about these minor works in local districts. There might be large-scale drainage works to be carried out by the Northern Metropolis, and we could take the opportunity to improve the drainage works in the rural areas nearby. And also, there is mentioned about the devotion of an extra $30 billion in the next 2 to 3 years. And yes, we will use the money on small scale as well as medium scale works. As to whether we are going to further streamline the town planning procedures, the answer is yes. As mentioned by Mr. Gary Zhang, there are different areas in the Northern Metropolis, and we might come up with the relevant plans in different sequences and orders. In the past, there were rather narrow scopes of uses for the industry parks. We hope that through the dedicated legislations, we could have room for further streamlining the approval process for the different permitted use for the areas. As for the GFA exemption for car parks, if you are to build car parks above ground, it will automatically increase the building height. We will give an extra 20% of building height for these buildings. So at most, you will only increase the building height by 20%. Normally, if you see the building height increase by 20%, we can go for the simpler town planning procedure to get approval. We will let the town planning board know that this is a government-led approach. The government does wish to ease restrictions and remove barriers. And against this backdrop, we hope that the town planning board would make things easier when it comes to approving the applications. We hope that starting from November this year, the streamlined procedures will be commenced. This is not a very complicated measure. Mr. Chang Hop-Fong, I'd like to take this opportunity to first thank the Development Bureau. Recently, we have seen heavy downpours as well as extreme weather, and because of the effort made by the Development Bureau, the flooding situation in a lot of low-lying areas have been improved. So thank you, Secretary. I'd like to first declare that I am the non-executive director of the Urban Renewal Authority. I see that the URA is going to revamp the plot ratio arrangement. We will talk about this in the next meeting, so I'm not going to go into the details now. I'd like to turn to the maintenance and repair works for old buildings. Under extreme weather, we see that a lot of buildings in Hong Kong are getting old and dilapidated, and we are often very scared that things will fall apart in old buildings after, say, a torrential rain. Can we do more? For example, can we have a voluntary maintenance scheme initiated by local residents? Say local residents get a statutory order. If they decide that they are unable to carry out the maintenance works themselves, then they could pay the government and ask the government to help with the maintenance works in hopes that this could speed up the maintenance procedure. Can we take this direction first? Second, paragraph 194 mentions about community eateries as well as homestay lodgings. I support this idea. My understanding is that homestay lodgings fall under the HYAB because these kind of homestay lodgings have to get licenses under the guest house ordinance. Well, local residents are very concerned about this, especially those living in village houses. This is because they might not be interested in transforming their village houses into homestay lodgings. How can we encourage more residents to take part in this scheme? Will the government interact with local residents more frequently? As we all know, there are no major drainage pipes in village houses. They use septic tanks. So how will you ensure that village houses can be successfully converted into homestay lodgings? Thirdly, on the harbourfront area in Kennedy Town, as the Protection of Harbourfront Ordinance has been amended, when will you start the work of constructing the boardwalk at Kennedy Town? Over the past 2 years, because of the National Day holiday, we saw a lot of tourists at Kennedy Town, and we need room to divert crowds there. So what is the relevant progress? Secretary, on the Kennedy Harbourfront area, I'll ask the Permanent Secretary to reply on repair and maintenance of old buildings. Perhaps the URA at the next meeting will tell you more. Indeed, the URA has sped up its work in this regard. I know this because we have seen a drop in terms of the number of private sector projects because of the situation with the real estate market. So a few months ago, we asked the URA to speed up the approval process for applications under the Building Bright Operation Scheme. Also, the Housing Department has been taking the initiative to look into the maintenance works of old buildings. It has been carrying out maintenance works for local residents first and then recover the money afterwards. Apart from urban renewal, building inspection as well as maintenance are part of the work to be carried out by the URA. We hope that by next year we will be able to come up with a proposal on this with the URA. Now, on the Northern Metropolis project, how can we make sure that village houses could be converted into homestay lodgings? The HYAB is responsible for licensing matters. As for the Development Bureau, we're looking into land use restrictions. We might have to ease the relevant restrictions in this regard. Say, for example, a lot of small houses have to be used for commercial purposes for the first floor, and the upper floors, they can only be used for residential purposes. Now, can we relax the relevant restrictions so that more upper floors of village houses could be used for commercial purposes? So we have to look into the land use restrictions and the necessary infrastructures. We hope to offer support in this regard. Now, on the question about Kennedy Town, yes, Ms. Doris Ho. Well, this is not just a concern of members. We are prioritizing this. We hope that with the passage of the Protection of Harbour Amendment Bill, we'll be able to launch the relevant work soon. We'll have to carry out an engineering studies first, and once we've got the funding, we'll kickstart the works. Thank you. Next, Mr. Edward Lau. Thank you, Chairman. I thank the Chief Executive as well as the Development Bureau for the initiatives in the policy address. They have taken on board a lot of our suggestions, for example, on the expansion of the university town in the Northern Metropolis. Also, the pay-for-what-you-build approach was also our suggestion. Now, I have a couple of questions as well as comments. In the policy address, it is mentioned that the Chief Executive is going to chair the Committee on Northern Metropolis, and under which there will be 3 working groups. I support this idea as this will give us a clearer target and goal. As an executive authority, I believe the Northern Metropolis Coordination Office has to be elevated and the composition has to be enhanced. We have the major direction set for the Northern Metropolis project, and now we have to make sure that we can implement them. The Northern Metropolis Coordination Office currently focuses on the works in the Northern Metropolis. As for the industry development as well as education, for example, I hope that the composition of the office could be enhanced so that the relevant matters could be looked at. I also support the idea of having dedicated legislations for the Northern Metropolis. I agree that we should only just have the legislative framework set for the Northern Metropolis project. Well, if government departments have no idea what will happen in the coming 3 to 5 years, how could there be detailed provisions for the dedicated legislations? There's no way for us to keep updating this dedicated legislation. So I think we should empower government departments to carry out certain works by way of subsidiary legislations or pilot schemes. So I hope that there could be an overarching framework that empowers different government departments to launch various pilot schemes by way of subsidiary legislations. Now I have a suggestion. To develop the Northern Metropolis, it's better to focus on the new development areas because the government will keep resuming land there. However, there are lands that aren't so-called perfect in the Northern Metropolis. For example, these lands have missing lots and there are problems with adverse possessions, and also applications for changing the use of land were not allowed for these lands. And there are also disputes about ancestral halls and lands on these sites. The Lands Department have their own procedures and systems, and the Department of Justice also look at the matters about ancestral halls. So can we have a piece of dedicated legislation that deals with all these matters and problems concerning these sites and lands to release more land? For example, we have the land co-sharing pilot scheme, and this allows the government and developers to take part in land development for infrastructure development. My view is that unlike urban areas where URA would come in and support the development projects, for lands in the new territories, I think the government has to take a more proactive approach. If the lands are being left idle for too long, that would not facilitate the development of the Northern Metropolis. So these are the points that I would like to make first.
Secretary, about the manpower of the Northern Metropolis Coordination Office, Mr. Edward Lau, I'm really grateful for your comments. You'd like to see an expansion of this office. I think it's because the office is doing its job properly. Now, for other bureaus, they also have their own manpower there. For instance, the working group on Unitown, the secretariat will be put under the Education Bureau. So there will be a team from the Education Bureau which will be overseeing the positioning and policy of the Unitown. So we can leave this with the Education Bureau. What we have to do is to get the land ready. And also the FS's working group, which is in charge of devising development and operation models, it has to do with the financial arrangement. So the Secretariat will be under the FSTB, and there will be a team coming from that bureau, which will be in charge of this area of work. So much is clear. Mr. Lau also said that in the NT, for historical reason, indeed, it would take some considerable time to verify the title, even if we want to resume the land. We cannot really afford so much time doing this to offer compensation and so on. So we'd like to have this piece of dedicated legislation. One of the remit is to put in place some provisions for us to facilitate our title verification. The land registry would have the listing there. We would use the information. We haven't quite enforced the registration system, but we can take advantage of this system. But the challenge lies with the fact that if someone were to come forward to contest the issue, we will have to do something else. Now, the title is something that we really need to deal with. Ms. Chen Yutming. As always, I am in support of the accelerated development of the Northern Metropolis. I've got 2 points here. First, grateful to the Chief Executive to elevate the governance structure of the Northern Metropolis. We have the FSS leading the operation models. Now we have the port economy, we have the Unitown, and also the park development. I hope that the future development will tie in with the development of the Unitown, in particular the 1.5 level development. The land near Heung Yuen Wai will provide a very good condition for development. Second, about the siting of the food industry park. In Heung Yuen Wai, there will be a priority area, and there would be land earmarked for food development in Hong Kong. I am in support of the development in this area. I'm also in support of the elevation there. In terms of siting, the working group on planning and development under DFS should be more receptive to public views. As I said, near Heung Yuen Wai, we have 206 hectares of land, which is a priority development area to develop port economy and Unitown. Every day we learn from the news that 80,000 people are coming in and out of the Heung Yuen Wai boundary control point. Now the piece of land is very valuable. Should we serve merely the Unitown and the food industry? Now, Maxim and Wing Wah, they have large plants in the mainland. They are manufacturing the seasonal food every year. And shouldn't we use that valuable piece of land for processing of food as well? And this is going to be the central area. If we can have the food processing facilities there, then we can take advantage of this site, and we can release the industrial site in the urban areas as a result. And I urge members to be more concerned about the siting of this food processing zone. And I hope that there would be further details to be supplemented by the Secretary for our reference. Thank you. Secretary, please. Chairman, thank you. I heard what Ms. Chen said. I know where she's coming from. She would like to have the food processing zone, although she's concerned about the siting. Near Heung Yuen Wai, we have the east-in, east-out, west-in, west-out arrangement, and a lot of the control point would be near the Heung Yuen Wai. It seems to us that this is the focal point for the food industry. I understand Ms. Chen is really passionate about this issue. We would attach importance to her view, and we would have worked with the EEB to explore the common ground that would be possible regarding the siting. Now, there is a mention of the 1.5 level development, and it is said it is a suitable for Hong Yun Wai. Now, with 1.5 level development, it means that we are not really doing anything in one fell swoop. Now, we are talking about the industry sites. I must emphasize that we can apply this idea to every single piece of land. Now, we'd like to accelerate the development of Northern Metropolis, and if we apply this idea, if we may slow down the development there. But for certain pieces of land, if we are of the view that it would be too early for us to build permanent facilities there too early because the infrastructure is not ready, then we can apply this 1.5 level development model. Now, I must emphasize that we're not really applying this across the board for all pieces of land. Thank you. Mr. Doreen Kong, Chairman. I've always been concerned and supportive of the Bureau's work. My first question, Mr. Chairman, is the beautification of Lan Kwai Fong and the nearby cityscape. Lan Kwai Fong is a unique place for Hong Kong. I've seen more footfall in Lan Kwai Fong, which is really gratifying. Now, will you be extending to Soho area, the Lyndhurst Terrace and Aberdeen Street area? Now, this is also part of the area. If you can cover a larger area in the beautification work, I'm sure that you will derive more economic benefits. Second, yacht economy, which is dear to my heart as well. I'd like to put this to the Secretary for the super yachts. They are normally berthed at the Lantau Marina. Now, for this new Hong Kong Marina, will you be accommodating the super yachts? I think if in the urban areas, in Hong Kong, for instance, if we can have facilities for the super yachts, it certainly would be adding to the vibes there. Also, for urban renewal, I'm glad to see that there would be a new mindset. I look forward to the next meeting where the administration will be elucidating further on the details. There will be difficulties like the 13th Street in To Kwa Wan. I hope that we can have an earlier solution there. Secretary, please. Chairman, Lan Kwai Fong, the refurbishment and beautification there, according to our plan, we're not going as far as Lyndhurst Terrace. We are covering somewhere near the Lyndhurst Terrace, the Douglas Street, Warren Lane, that kind of area. But I think we can progressively extend out to other areas. Now, the key thing is to get the first part of the work done well. We're not trying to do anything terribly complicated because we like to see tangible results sooner. Now, for Lan Kwai Fong, there are some streets that are really going a bit shabby. Some tiles are really falling apart. I would like to fix that first. And then the lampposts, the manhole covers, and the stone walls, I would like to make them nice and stylish. And it's more like refurbishing, renovating your home kind of idea. Why the Development Bureau is spearheading this? Now, this is all for the good. It would involve an awful lot of departments. At the end of the day, we need one single bureau spearheading this. This may not be large-scale development. There may be some departments which fall outside of the remit. But I think if we can have one single bureau spearheading this, it would be really all for the good. And going forward, we will not be confined to Lan Kwai Fong alone. The member also mentioned that for the marinas, we can also accommodate the super yachts. In some cases, we have the technical details like the water current and so on. I defer to Ms. Ho. Ms. Ho? Right about the yacht berthing facilities, the siting there. Now, first of all, Hong Kong, we are doing the planning now, but on a preliminary basis, we may not be able to accommodate the super yachts because of the limited water body. It is also close to a navigation channel. Rather, the ex-Lama Quarry, that area would be more suitable. Maybe we can accommodate yachts more than 50 meters long. And also the AAHK, the airport city, they are contemplating a 600 berth facility there where they would like to have accommodation for the super yachts there.
Next, Mrs. Regina Yip. Thank you, Chairman. I'd also like to talk about yacht berthing facilities. Paragraph 186 of the policy address mentions that the Aberdeen Typhoon Shelter will be expanded for yacht berthing, but it is a very narrow space. Also, there are a few parts to the Aberdeen Typhoon Shelter. There is the western part as well as the southern part is close to the harbourfront area, and there are many fishing vessels there. So, which part of the typhoon shelter will be expanded in future, and will that have any impacts on the existing fishing vessels? Now, on cruise tourism, the government is planning to develop the former Kai Tak runway into an environmental green system. Many people say that they would like to see hotels there. If we want to learn from Barcelona, for example, people fly there for 2 days and stay at the hotels there, and then they get on to the cruise. Or they could stay in Barcelona and spend 2 days before getting on the cruise. If you can build some hotels at the vicinity, I think it will help promote cruise tourism. Secretary. Now, the first point is about expanding the Aberdeen Typhoon Shelter. After expanding the area, will there be any impacts on the fishing vessels? Well, the Typhoon Shelter will be kept at its existing location. After the expansion, there will be 2 parts to the Typhoon Shelter. One part will be closer to the Ocean Park Hotel, and that's where we are thinking of building recreational facilities as well as yacht berths for private yachts. And for the other parts, there will be berthing facilities for the public. Now, closer to the Ocean Park Hotel, the space dedicated for private yachts, would the landing facilities be too narrow? Well, our thinking is that if there are appropriate sites, we might replan the onshore area. So we're not just going to revamp the water bodies there. Now, turning to the Kai Tak former runway, well, there are a few parcels of commercial lands there. We haven't converted the permitted uses of these sites. It's just that with the existing real estate market situation, there seems to be a lower demand for commercial sites. So we have these commercial sites that are not in use. They might be used for temporary purposes. There are a few plots of land near the former runway that are reserved for commercial as well as tourism purposes. So in future, we could build hotels there with these commercial land plots. Chairman, I have a follow-up question. We have a beautiful shoreline in the southern area, and also we have a very good water sports recreational center there. Are there plans to build another water center in Shek O? Secretary. I think the CSTB did have the plans to build a water sports center there. The previous term government collected views on the proposal, but we didn't get very good feedback. So, where appropriate, we might revive the proposal. As for whether there are other places in the southern district where we can promote water sports and recreational facilities. I don't have the relevant information at hand because this is under the purview of the CSTB. Perhaps the Commissioner for Invigorating Island South could look into this. Well, I think the administration should follow up on this. Next, Mr. Bill Tang. Thank you, Chairman. All the questions I have to do with Kowloon East. Now, Energizing Kowloon East office worked with 2 departments on attracting businesses and capital, and they together made a very important step to build Kowloon East into a core business area. They hope that they could, together with community organizations, build it into a business area. I think this is a very great first move, but could we do more? Could there be collaboration among the government, the commercial business sector, as well as the community or even the academia to form a committee to build Kowloon East into a second core business district? We had a meeting earlier with some businesses, and they all agreed that we haven't completely unleashed the potential of Kowloon East. Now turning to berthing facilities for yachts, I think starting from 2023, I have already been calling for building a marina at Yau Tong Bay. It is a very good spot for yacht berthing facilities, and Mr. Lee Xiaohang from the business sector has also carried out a study on this. Now, recently we had this super typhoon, and Lei Yu Moon was not affected. Not unlike Southern District on Hong Kong Island. So we see that this is a great spot, while the Chief Executive's policy address proposes promoting the building of yacht berthing facilities. How come we overlooked Yau Tong Bay? Is it because the government has its own ideas or plans on this? We have Hong Kong, Lamma Island, as well as the Southern District, which are planned for yacht berthing facilities, but Yau Tong Bay has been overlooked, so this is quite disappointing, I think. Lastly, on student hostels, I agree with the relevant schemes. We want well-known overseas as well as mainland institutions to set up operations in Hong Kong, and in Kowloon East, we have a lot of grade A commercial buildings that meet the E-beam, the beam plus assessment, and so we should attract them to set up operations in Kowloon East. For student hostels, apart from making use of commercial sites, could we transform or convert industrial buildings into student hostels as well? There are many new industrial buildings that were built in the past 10 years, and they could be used as student hostels. Secretary, on how we should build Kowloon East into the second core business district, and how we can attract enterprises to set up presence in Kowloon East. Well, in response to Mr. Bill Tang's views, recently we set up an online email platform allowing different business merchants in the districts as well as the Invest Hong Kong and the Energizing Kowloon East office to exchange information with each other. This enables businesses in the local district to learn what kind of enterprises are interested in setting up presence in Kowloon East. We will see how this platform works, and then we will decide whether we should have a more stringent committee system in place. But at least we have already made the first move. Now, on yacht berthing facilities, we haven't forgotten about Yau Tong Bay. We have already made some planning for Yau Tong Bay. Unlike the Exlama Quarry as well as the Aberdeen Typhoon Shelter, which have just been mentioned in recent years from the land development perspectives. For Yau Tong Bay, we have already made plans to build a residential area as well as a harbourfront promenade there. We are leaving it to the private sector market, and when time is ripe, we will have the private sector launch the developments. As for student hostels, for existing commercial buildings as well as industrial buildings, if they should be turned into student hostels, the relevant developers are welcomed to make use of the city in the hostel scheme. As for whether we could make use of the industrial sites for student hostels, there are some challenges. We have to wait for the outcomes of our studies on industrial sites. This is because there are industrial activities being carried out on those industrial sites, so we are doubtful whether they are appropriate to be turned into student hostels. As for sites which are no longer used for industrial purposes and sites which have already been turned into commercial or business purposes, then we are willing to turn them into student hostels. Mr. Frankie Yik. Chairman, I very much support the new short-term tenancy arrangement. They can at most be renewed for 21 years. In the past, there were short-term tenancy sites used for various places, like cold store. So if they have to be renewed once every few years, that would be very problematic for the operators there. And for shipyards or ship owners, and also storage container operators, they also use these short-term tenancy sites because the tenancy terms are short. They'd like to have better equipment and facilities on these sites, but they are hesitant about it because the tenancy agreement is very short. In the past, how come there were retendering exercises? This is because there were operators on the market who would like to bid for the site. And this arrangement runs counter to your current short-term tenancy arrangement. So how will you deal with the contradiction? Secondly, I also welcome the arrangement that allows private sector to build car parks above ground, because there will be GFA exemption. Just now, Mr. Gary John asked whether the building height restrictions would be violated with the above-ground car park. So you've just replied to the question. Say I would like to have one more story of car park. Will I still get the GFA exemption for the underground car park? I ask this question because in the urban areas we are in serious shortage of car parking spaces. So I hope that through these arrangements, more private sector developers would be willing to build car parks. I'm not sure if this could be an incentive for them, but if the underground car park could also get the GFA exemption, it could be an incentive for them. Now, in the paper you mentioned about the Round the Trail Island, and you said that by a few years later you'll get the missing sections connected. Well, in the western part of the Hong Kong Island, there are some loading and unloading areas, and there was a pedestrian walkway, but the pedestrian walkway was closed down because some citizens meddled with the stalls there. Well, the government might be aware that the loading and unloading areas are very helpful with the local businesses. So how are you going to deal with them? Secretary. Now with the new arrangement, short-term tenancy agreements could be renewed and for 21 years. And we need some certainties. For each term, it will be 7 years long, and during the 7-year period, it will allow time for the government to review the rental. And that would also give time for tenants to decide whether they would like to renew the tenancy. We aren't going to open up the sites for bidding by other operators or potential tenants during the 7-year period. Otherwise, that would run counter to this new arrangement. The 7-year window is just to give us time to renew the rental level. Now, on the GFA exemption for car parks in private developments, for underground car parks, the same existing arrangement will apply, so they will still get the GFA exemption.
Chairman, do we need to amend the planning standard? You need to have a ratio in terms of the provision of parking. If the developer would like to build more because this will be good for the sale, would there be a problem? Are you going to be having to amend the planning standard, Secretary? Well, whether they put the car parks above ground or underground, what we are amending is the exemption of the GFA. We will be putting out the practice notes that will not affect the ratio of car parks. If the developers would like to have a higher ratio than what is prescribed in the guidelines, there is room for this to happen if there is the traffic assessment. When indeed there is a shortage, serious shortage of car parks, and if the government makes it flexible, then it will go down well. Mr. Louis Long. Chairman, thank you. Thank you very much, Secretary, for being with us and take us through the work of the Development Bureau. The industry welcomes the initiatives in the policy address relating to the development area because there are many initiatives that have taken on board the sector's views. The Northern Metropolis, the sector has always been of the view that the level should be elevated. Now it has been elevated to the highest possible level. This committee on the development of Northern Metropolis will be headed up by the chief executive himself, and we have 3 working groups. The FS is leading the working group on devising development and operational models. Now, this is what the sector has been advocating. We need to have a single window to deal with the land issues, the planning issues, and so on. And I'm sure that we are going down this path going forward, and this will be supported by the sector. If we can do this smoothly, then I'm sure that the real estate sector would be only too interested in the Northern Metropolis. And I'm reading through the paper. There are proposals to ease restrictions and remove barriers. This is something that we have been fighting for. And we should really remove all these unnecessary barriers. The provision of hostels for students. We said that the newly built facilities should also benefit. That this is happening in the policy address. Now, this is really fantastic. As to the construction industry, $30 billion will be set aside, and you have $120 billion for the construction expenditure. This is really very helpful to the industry. This comes as a timely relief to the trade. And all these public works will come as a relief to the construction sector. at a difficult time. Now you have the urban renewal with new mindsets, and you allow the transfer cross district transfer of plot ratio. This is really helpful to the regeneration of old urban areas. I hope that the practice guide will be promulgated as soon as possible. There is another point that we have been putting forward for some considerable time. This is something that has to be addressed in urban renewal, and that is the house restriction. In 2013, the Court of Final Appeal gave the verdict regarding the case, and you have the 2008 practice guide that has been promulgated, and the definition for house is too narrow. And 10 years later, 2023, there is another case, a Jack Drury case, came to court, and the court made the point that the definition for a house is too narrowly couched under 2008. And I hope that the Development Bureau should really liaise with the DOJ to see how the definition or the practice guide can be further relaxed. Otherwise, it would be bad for urban renewal, in particular in Kowloon City and Sam Shui Po, because of this definition. It would be really restrictive. Right, your point is has been clearly made. I invite the Secretary to make a response. Chairman, I heard the members' views. Now, to let the public know what we are talking about, there is some restriction on a house. Now, for a lease or a lot, if it is allowed to build a house, if it is redeveloped into a multi-story building, would it be necessary to pay the premium? There was a CFA verdict years and years ago, and the government won the court case. Effectively, what it means is that for these or the redevelopment of these lease, the developer will have to pay the premium. Now we have the CFA verdict here. We have to respect that. But is there any room where we can explore in relation to the urban renewal? Would there be any negative bearing on the urban renewal? We are happy to have a look at this. That the member said that we have to speed up the vetting of the development of the Northern Metropolis. That the member used the wording a single window. Now we have a wide variety of developments in the Northern Metropolis. For public works, the Development Bureau will be in charge of the window, which will look at the vetting of the applications. Now, for public housing, the Housing Bureau will be having the oversight for private projects. They need to build the buildings in the parks. Then the Development Bureau will have a permanent secretary overseeing this. But the plans will have to submit to the Buildings Department. They still have to go to the Town Planning Board, but we have this mechanism to oversee the process every step of the way, and we will have the time limit beyond which there will be consequences. The permanent secretary might step in and intervene. So we do have the dedicated divisions to oversee the developments there. And we're giving ourselves until the end of the year to come up with a timetable for each and every process and announce the operation of different divisions, because the trade would like to know where they should approach for the applications. If there are issues, which doors should they knock on? There will be announcement by the end of the year. Right, it's taken a bit longer, but I think it is well worth it, because this is a very good explanation. Mr. Lam San Keung, Chairman, I'm sure that there will be a lot of challenges in taking forward the Northern Metropolis. Mr. Lau already mentioned the titles, and I can see the problem with environment. We have the wetland park, and given the existing standard, it would be rather hard for us to deal with the issues. We have the migratory birds, the shoreline. In the dedicated legislation, will there be some provisions that will address this, and what about the timetable there? Secretary? Chairman, in the Northern Metropolis, now for the eco-sensitive areas, I like the examples cited, the Maipo area, the Sanposhi wetland conservation areas. These areas are for conservation. Does it mean that the neighboring areas will not be a place for development? That we do have the procedures now, even for the Sanposhi wetland conservation area, we can still have the Santin Technopole, which covers a few hundred hectares. This is doable. We have to realize that it is only right for us to conserve the eco-sensitive areas. But in the dedicated legislation, would there be any room for us to speed up the process and also remove the barriers? For instance, we need to accelerate the Northern Metropolis development. We may need to carry out work round the clock in some areas. Now we have the noise control provisions. Is there anything we can do to relax this a little bit? Northern Metropolis is not a built-up area where you have a lot of residential dwellings. And in the Northern Metropolis, can we make it more relaxed? Do we need to have the backup of legislation, or can we just resort to administrative measures? When we take forward this dedicated legislation, we will certainly have this in mind. For eco-sensitive areas, certainly we will attach importance to the conservation and also the existing statutory procedures. All right. Next, Mr. Chen Han-ben. Chairman, I don't normally score the policy address, but I would give top score for the policy address in relation to development. For instance, in the Tsuen Wan redevelopment, if we don't give them the extra plot ratio, there will not be any incentive at all. In the entire study, if we need to increase the plot ratio for Tsuen Wan, it would be a little bit challenging because of all the constraints. So this is really a bit of a headache. So if it is not sufficiently attractive, then the residents in Tsuen Wan would be left disappointed. I said many times that we should increase the plot ratio. This has been addressed. Now you have the proposal to transfer the plot ratio. You can allow them to convert the plot ratio into monetary value, and this is really rekindling hope for the residents of Tsuen Wan. Second, the streamlining of the procedures. The entire vetting procedures can be accelerated, and this is something that we are very concerned about. And you have the time-limited vetting system. Previously, you have a lot of toing and froing of the issues between departments, and you may miss the golden opportunities for redevelopment. And I welcome the mechanism this time. I've got two questions and comments, if I may. First, would you consider, given that there are a lot of idle sites that are fenced off, would you consider taking advantage of this, it would be really an awful long process for application to be made. Would you consider streamlining the procedures for application for the use of these sites? Now, previously, we had situations where the departments are really drip in making available information in drips and drabs, and the process of application is terribly long. In Tsuen Wan, for instance, there are some idle quarters for use by the members of the public. If you can think out of the box, it would be a good idea. Second, the yacht economy. My party has been conducting studies on yacht economy. Now, the marina would be a very important facility, and I think other facilities are also just as important, like the facilities for embarking and disembarking. Can we take the yacht to Kai Tak where there are no landing steps? And there are many yachts that are using the landing facilities, and they have to queue up, and it is dangerous if they are bobbing up and down in the choppy sea. And we also need the charging facilities for the yachts for repair and maintenance. If we are to develop the yacht economy, all these facilities are indispensable, so they would be a good development.
Secretary, please. I thank Mr. Ben Chen for the encouragement on urban renewal. We do think that it is a pressing issue with the exponential growth of old and dilapidated buildings in Hong Kong. We have to promote urban renewal and redevelopment. So we welcome members for their suggestions and comments in this regard. Just now, the member asked whether we could further streamline land administrative procedures. A few years ago, we set up a $1.5 billion fund, and we have a dedicated counter. If you have been visiting the Lands Department website, we have listed out all the idle sites that are open for application by the public. We also have all the ready-to-use old campuses that could be used by the public. So this counter does not only offer advice to you, but also technical support. So if Mr. Ben Chen have any individual cases that he'd like to share with us, we are willing to facilitate the relevant applications. Now, we have to look at the landing facilities when it comes to promoting yacht economy. If we get things right, we will be able to promote water and recreational facilities, and therefore landing facilities will be a focus for us. If we have the support from the Legislative Council, and we also have the amended Protection of Harbour Ordinance. So in future, it should be easier for us to build landing facilities because it will fall under the minor work schedule. So I think it is only a matter of priority and resource availability. Just now, some members said that they would like us to prioritize the works at the Kennedy Town Harbourfront area. As to whether we could build landing facilities earlier, well, we will collect views from members and we will come up with the priority. Next, Mr. Tony Che. In this year's policy address, there are quite a number of initiatives that fall under the purview of the Development Bureau. In the interest of time, I'd just like to make some suggestions and comments about urban renewal and the redevelopment of old districts. I think it's definitely doable for the URA to take up more work. However, there are fewer profit-making projects for the URA nowadays, so I hope the government could give some land to the URA so that it could help ease the financial burden of the URA to make sure that they won't suffer any losses. Now, on the flat for flat scheme, from my point of view, I think it has not been very successful. This is mainly because there has been a time gap. You are only allowing the people affected to choose flats several years after they have surrendered their own flats. If you don't have any show flats or display flats, it'll be hard for people to choose the replacement flats they want. So I hope that you won't simply adopt the old flat for flat scheme. Now, turning to redevelopment projects of old districts, I think there aren't enough incentives for the private sector to take part in these redevelopment projects. Paragraph 13 of the paper mentions that private sector will have to go through the town planning board as well as to pay a premium if they want to take part in the projects. If no changes have to be made to the plot ratio, I don't see why the private sector has to go through the town planning board. Now, on the premium, I think you really have to think about the relevant arrangement, otherwise it would just be an empty talk. Now, on the beautification works for Lan Kwai Fong, I think it's a great idea. I've worked for private sector developers in the past. I think we have to ensure that we can showcase the characteristics of Lan Kwai Fong in the beautification works. I wonder if shop owners or local businesses at Lan Kwai Fong would love to take part in the beautification project. You may consider this. Now, on yacht economy, of course, I welcome this idea. I would like to see the implementation of the individual travel scheme for yachts. On site selection, would you consider making use of the eastern part of Hong Kong? Because currently in Tai Po, there are no relevant yacht berthing facilities. It is a beautiful place. Perhaps you can think about making use of the spaces there. On promoting yacht economy, we currently have large-scale cruises that come to Hong Kong, but how can we attract yachts from the mainland to come to Hong Kong? Can we think about doing more on building landing facilities so that we can actually promote yacht economy? Secretary, just now the member mentioned about the redevelopment of old districts. The member is concerned whether the land given to the URA should be used for the flat for flat scheme. Well, I agree that we have to first give the compensation under the 7-year rule arrangement to those affected, and then you have to wait until the replacement flats are built to relocate the affected residents. And I agree that there are some loopholes to this arrangement. So we are going to look at with the URA how we can revamp the scheme. Also, it's hard for us to sustain the compensation arrangement for the 7-year rule because the compensation payment is too high. So we are thinking how we can improve this. Now, on the point about plot ratio transfer, if there is unutilized plot ratio, if you want to transfer it to other districts, you do not necessarily have to go through the town planning board, because if it is within the same district, you won't have to go through the relevant procedures. But if it involves cross-district transfer of plot ratio, you'll have to go through the TPB. You have to let the TPB know. Say, if there is an excessive plot ratio involved, well, we could consider having more simplified procedure. On premium payment as well, we will consider more streamlined procedures. For example, can we have standard payments for premium in the urban areas? We will think about this. Now, on the beautification works for Lan Kwai Fong, we will have to ensure that we will be able to highlight the characters of Lan Kwai Fong, and we want the participation of local businesses into the project. We have to first upgrade the hardware, and then we want to promote the idea of community making or place making so that we can bring in local business operators into the project. As for whether we can consider other spots for creating yacht berthing facilities, well, we want to first focus on the spots we have proposed first, and then we will turn to other spaces if necessary. Mr. Michael Tin, Secretary, you know that you are one of the secretaries that I admire and respect the most. However, regrettably, I might be one of the few members here who could not give 100% score for the policy address. Now, for the current term government, it's been focusing on public housing. And public housing, you have done really well. And for the Northern Metropolis is another highlight of the current term government. Well, you have a very capable government official working on this project, so you should be able to see success. The government promised that there will be 3 infrastructure: 1 Northern Link, 2 Central Link, and 3 Hong Shui-Kiu line. So 1 connecting the east with the west and another connecting the south with the north. The 1 connecting the east and the west that is being built now. However, we don't have the central link anymore for those who'd like to travel between the east and west. So you can only have the Hong Shui-Kiu line. It is a cross-boundary project, so you might be able to adopt the national standards as well as hire mainland workers, and you could reduce cost by 30 to 40% that way. We have about 1 million people in Yuen Long and Tuen Mun. If they all use the Tuen Ma line as well as Tsuen Wan line, they will have to wait for a long time to be able to get onto the train. I assume that the government is facing the problem with money. Well, to deal with the money issue, you might issue bonds, but the financial secretary is unwilling to do so. And this is not favorable to the Northern Metropolis project in terms of its image. The government has strong belief in the Northern Metropolis project, and you believe that the future 1 million people who live in the Northern Metropolis will be able to find jobs there. You believe that they will not have to travel to the Hong Kong Island or Kowloon for work in the future. I don't think this is logical. This is because if that's the case, you won't have to build the transport link between the south and the north. Is there really a change in your mindset? You really believe that no one will have to travel to the Hong Kong Island for work in the future for those who live in the Northern Metropolis? Secondly, on reclamation. Well, some of the sites were supposed to be used for sports and entertainment purposes, but now it is used as a depot. So I want to know if the Sunny Bay reclamation works will still be for entertainment and recreational purposes. If it is, will you consider building a car racing circuit there? If you are giving up on the reclamation project entirely, then I will not mention it again. Thirdly, on Changsha, well, there were views that Changsha should be developed. and that in Tongchong there should be 4-lane carriageways instead of a 2-lane one, which should be connected with the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. Also, will you give more quotas for cars coming from Guangdong so that they can travel to the south, and this will help promote the blue-green ecotourism as well.
Secretary, Mr. Tin raised 3 issues: Hong Shui Kiu, Lantau, and Sunny Bay to Hong Kong Island. This railway was planned on the basis of the Kao Yi Chao development, and there will be a rail link going all the way to the northern metropolis. That was the idea. Now, since we are not taking forward the Kao Yi Chao development immediately, we have the Hong Shui Kiu to Tianhai Railway, which is being taken forward. And going south, it may not cover the newly developed area. Would there be sufficient population to support a railway? Now, Mr. Tin has got a point. In the northern metropolis, if there are industries, there are residential dwellings, people are living in the northern metropolis, don't have to travel south. Indeed, we have to consider the funding. Even if we have the funding, would the funding dispersed or defrayed be cost effective? We are focusing on the Hong Shui Kiu to Tianhai railway development, and to the south of Hong Shui Kiu, we would observe the development there and see when is the right timing to build the Hong Shui Kiu to Sunny Bay. As to the Sunny Bay reclamation, the reclaimed area and the land area, they haven't been decided in terms of the land use. And indeed, if reclamation is to take place there, and if there is a rail going from Sunny Bay to the north, there will be a depot. Now, since we're not taking forward the Kao Yi Chao straight away, at this point in time, we will not be considering putting the depot there on the reclamation, because we will not prioritize that. Now, for the third is Southern Lantau. We still have the plan to make the South Lantau a eco-tourism area, including the Cheungsha and Shek Pik, and the north-south access will have to be provided. We have started the study on the access road from the north to the south, from Mui Wharf, for instance. And by the end of the year, the study will be completed, and in early parts of next year, we will be coming back to the council with the considerations. As to the software, now we have the studies on the hardware. As to the software, we have the quota for the Guangdong vehicles to come south to Lantau. And this is an awful idea. It is worth looking into regarding this quota system. But we have to tie in with the development of the Lantau South into ecotourism area. It's my turn last. That the policy address 2025 is making the accelerated development of the northern metropolis a highlight. Now, we always say that development is the way to go. Now, we're not flying blind. We have to develop in a rational and reasonable manner. And we have to strike balance between development and conservation. We very much hope that this will become a reality, as the Hong Kong will be vibrant and a livable city. I've got 2 points here to do with the livelihood of the construction industry. Now we are talking about the public works and private works. Now for public works, the FS said that each year we had the 90 billion. Now this will go up to 120 billion in terms of expenditure. I talked with the permanent secretary. This is really close to the mark. This is achievable. And in the policy address, $30 billion will be set aside for the coming 2 to 3 years. And this is welcomed by the trade. But there is also a concern that because of the Northern Metropolis development and the public works will be skewed in favor of the large-scale developments. So I must emphasize that we have to cater for construction works of all kinds of magnitude. Massive development would be important, but minor works are also just as important to improve the livelihood, like the accessibility projects. I don't think we should give up on all of these. All these public works are important. For private sector works, indeed, the private housing development has been slowing to a crawl, and the consultancy firms, the architect firms, and are really having a bit of a headache. If there are opportunities, the developers would be interested in having some skin in the game. Like Tuen Mun, Area 16, there are 31 expression of interests received. And for good projects, the developers are really interested in having some skin in the game. They like to have project after project going forward. That for these large-scale plot development in the Northern Metropolis, should we bring the developers in earlier? This is something that we are very concerned about because this will be supplementing the lack of jobs in the private sector because that would be detrimental to livelihood. So for public works and private works, they are facing really severe problems. Now we talked about the Kao Yi Chow reclamation being held in abeyance, and what's going to happen to the future. When we talk about the development or improvement of the transport network, we're not merely talking about the Kao Yi Chow reclamation. We are really talking about the resolution of the serious traffic congestion. The 3 tunnels, with the reclamation, there would be a need for the 4th cross-harbor access. Now, with the Kao Yi Chow reclamation being suspended, what's going to happen to that? Now, we did cover this point before. This is not something for the Development Bureau alone. This is also something for the TLB as well, of course. Chairman. Now, we have the public works expenditure, and this will cover all manner of projects. In the budget, we will make clear all these projects. Now, we have allocation for the minor works as well, and all these will be published. As to the private sector works, we also push that. If the economy is good, then the market will be more vibrant. Now, we have the Hong Shui Kiu area will go ahead for tender. This we cover about 15 hectares of site. Other than the large-scale land disposal, we have the hostel in the city scheme, in which the existing commercial buildings will be repurposed. The response has been really enthusiastic, and this is also helpful to the volume of work in the market. We have all these measures to ease the restrictions, like the exemption of GFA for the above-ground car park and the short-term tenancies. This will increase the participation of the private sector, and all these measures mentioned in the policy address, we will promulgate all the administrative details at the end of this year or early next year. Chairman, you mentioned the 3 cross-harbor tunnels. Would that be sufficient? With the Kau Yi Chau reclamation being suspended, would there be any more cross-harbor rail network? The TLB would have regard to the prevailing circumstances, but what we are focusing on are the key rail links in the northern metropolis. As to when we are going to need another cross-harbor tunnel, the TLB certainly would review this in a timely manner. All right, so much for this item for today. My thanks to all the government officials for being with us. Next item, any other business? I don't have any AOB item unless you have any to raise. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all very much.